Chapter 4. Meat. Every breath reminded Kerry of the dried blood caked inside her nostril. She was in a packed shopping street, walking briskly alongside her mission controller, John Jones. It was dusk, and the greens and reds of hundreds of illuminated signs reflected off his silver-framed glasses and bald head. "Can you still see Clyde?" Kerry asked. She could only see the backs and heads crammed around her. John was taller, with a view over the crowd. "I think I can," John said. "But straight dark hair isn't exactly uncommon around here." There was a brief gap in the crowd, and John caught a glance of the yellow baseball jersey attached to the head he'd been watching for the last 2 minutes. Clyde Shue was wearing a green bomber jacket. "Damn it," John said. "Wrong guy." "You're joking," Kerry gasped as they stopped walking and anxiously turned into the frontage of a shop selling tacky jewellery. John pulled a smartphone out of his pocket and dialed Chloe. She was back at the apartment, sitting in front of the laptop. "I've lost Shue," John said. "What are you getting?" MI5 had connections inside Hong Kong's telecommunications industry, and they'd managed to set up a trace on Clyde Shue's mobile phone signal without having to tell the Chinese authorities about the Cherub operation. "According to this, he's right on top of you, John," Chloe said. "Mobile tracking isn't pinpoint, but he should be less than 50 metres away." "Which way is he moving?" "Nowhere fast. Maybe he's gone into a shop or something." "Thanks, Chloe," John said. "Call me back if he starts moving." John snapped the phone shut and looked across at Kerry. "Any sign?" "I'm too short," Kerry said. "I can't see a thing." "Chloe said he stopped moving." "We passed a Starbucks 20 metres back," Kerry said. "We could check that out." "Right," John said. As the pair turned away from the display of cheap watches to head for Starbucks, Kerry spotted a green jacket, hands buried in pockets. It flashed past less than a metre in front of them. Luckily, Clyde Shue had things on his mind, and his eyes were glued to the back of the person walking ahead of him. John and Kerry exchanged shocked expressions before stepping into the crowd and resuming the chase. "How did we manage to get in front of him?" Kerry asked. "Must have dropped into a shop to buy something," John said, as he craned his neck, desperate not to lose his fix on Shue for a second time. Kerry looked at her watch. It was 3 minutes to 8, which either meant Clyde was running late or that the meeting was going to take place somewhere nearby. They closed right up on their target as they waited to cross a road. As soon as the green walk sign lit up, Clyde jogged forward behind the first line of stopped cars, then bounded across the pavement and into a noodle bar with a grubby white sign and a plate glass frontage steamed up with condensation. They wanted to give Clyde a few moments to settle into the restaurant. John and Kerry crossed the road at a sedate pace, then made themselves look busy at a newsstand. Kerry bought a Hong Kong Times and some sweets, while John called Kyle on his mobile phone. "Kyle, where are you?" "Me and Bruce saw you crossing the road," Kyle answered. "Don't sweat it." "Okay," John said. "Stay close to the restaurant, but don't let Clyde see you, and don't make any moves before I give you the all clear. You understand?" "You're the boss," Kyle answered. John snapped his phone shut and looked at Kerry as she slid a tube of mints into her jeans. "Ready?" Kerry handed John the newspaper and nodded. "As I'll ever be." "Okay, go and win yourself an Oscar. I'll follow you inside in 3 minutes." Because of the condensation, Kerry wasn't sure what she'd find as she pushed open the glass door. The kitchen was at the front of the restaurant, with a muggy soy sauce smell rising from steaming tubs of noodle and rice dishes. A sweaty face popped up from behind the counter. "Hi, do you want a table or takeaway?" "Table," Kerry said tightly. "I think my friend is already here." The man waved his hand towards the rows of plastic tables at the back of the restaurant. Kerry felt queasy as she passed a short line of customers waiting for takeout. The restaurant was 70% full, and the decibel level was pretty high. She spotted Clyde at a table and was relieved to see that the person he was meeting hadn't arrived. He looked tetchy, jiggling his ankle up and down and fanning himself with a laminated menu. "Hi," Kerry said as she sat opposite. Clyde's chin dropped so fast it practically hit the tabletop. What? What are you doing here?" "I followed you," Kerry confessed. "Pardon me?" Kerry started to babble. "Clyde, I know this probably sounds dumb, but I really wanted to talk to you. I've been meaning to for ages, but I kept chickening out. You see, I can't stop thinking about you. All the time. I just need to know if you like me. You know, not like a friend, like a girlfriend." "Well, Kerry, I'm flattered." "Oh, this feels so dumb now," Kerry said, screwing up her face like she was about to cry. As she did, she reached into the pocket of her jacket and pulled the sticky backing away from a small listening device. "Are you even allowed out this late on your own?" "Not really," Kerry sniffed. "Oh, I should have realised you didn't like me." "Kerry, there's nothing wrong with you. I bet we get on really well if we were the same age. But I'm 16 and you're 13. Be sensible. That's never going to work, is it?" "I'm nearly 14, Kerry said, as she stuck the bag to the underside of the table. Now the initial shock of Kerry's presence had worn off, Clyde put some thought into how embarrassing it was going to be if the person he was meeting found a girl sobbing at his table. "And I'm nearly 17, Clyde said, snatching Kerry's wrist and squeezing it hard. "You're meeting another girl here, aren't you?" "Now you listen, Kerry," Clyde snapped, pointing a finger. "I'm here for a meeting. We can talk about this some other time, but right now, you have to get out of my face." Kerry had no reason to stick around now she'd planted the bug. She snatched her arm away from Clyde and sobbed dramatically as she stood up. A group of women with lots of shopping bags sitting a couple of tables away craned their necks around, slightly concerned. "I'm sorry, Clyde." Clyde raised a hand in front of his face, as if to say he couldn't listen to it anymore. "Just get out of here." As Kerry strode out of the restaurant, pretending to be in tears, she swept past John heading in the opposite direction. John passed between the rows of tables and settled in a few rows behind Clyde's shoe. He pulled open his newspaper, placed a wireless headset over his ear that looked exactly like the kind that gets supplied with upmarket mobile phones, and switched on the receiver unit. He heard the sound of Clyde anxiously jiggling his menu. It was nearly 8:15 when a heavily built Australian man carrying a large sports bag slid into the plastic bench facing Clyde's shoe. He reached across the table, shook hands with Clyde, and spoke in English. "How's it going, mate? Sorry I kept you." Clyde had a nervous touch in his voice, like a first date or a job interview. No worries." "Okay, mate. Nothing goes in writing, so prick up your ears," the Australian said, too quietly for anyone in the noisy restaurant to overhear, but easily picked up by the tiny microphone half a metre away from his mouth. "The bag is for you. There's a security pass and cleaner's uniform inside. The pass is for an office block called the Pacific Business Centre in Kowloon. The real cleaners work from 11 at night until 2 in the morning. You sneak in just after they arrive at 11 tomorrow night. Tell the security on the front desk that it's your first night on the job and you got lost. Act nervous. Clyde smiled. I probably will be nervous. The Aussie smiled back. Only natural, son. When you arrive at the office, you stay the hell away from the other cleaners and hide out until they leave. Where do I hide? Toilets. Not the ones in the offices themselves, but the ones outside by the elevators. They're maintained by a different contractor that only works during office hours. At 2 a.m, you use the security pass in the bag and enter the offices of Viennese Oil on the 6th floor. It's a small Italian oil exploration company. At the back of the office, you'll find the chairman's suite behind a set of double doors. In the washroom off to the side will be a Samsonite overnight bag. It'll be packed with clothes and toiletries. Open the bag and place the explosive at the bottom. Insert both fuses in case one goes wrong. You activate them by snapping off the heads and twisting the two wires together. When you've finished, you go back to the toilets and strip off your cleaner's overall. Then you leave the building via the stairs. You'll set off an alarm when you open the fire door. The security guard is no spring chicken, but he might call the cops, so I wouldn't hang around, okay? Clyde nodded. What happens then? You're a teenager, so my guess is that you go home and play with yourself before falling asleep. No, I mean, what happens with the explosive? Why are we putting it into an overnight bag instead of under his desk or something? The Australian shook his head slowly. Come on, you know how this works. We don't tell you what you don't need to know. Clyde felt stupid. Of course. Sorry,